Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the upper tier, and this is your transfer show. Joining me, as always, my partner on the podcast, the Dazzler himself, Darren. How are we, Darren?
All good, brother Niall. All good. How are you today
Good.
on
Not
this
too bad at all.
fine bank holiday?
Absolutely. Weather much better today than what it was yesterday, that's for sure. But yeah, got plenty done today. A most
I wouldn't
productive
know what
day.
the weather was like here yesterday, pal. I only touched down last night at 20 to 12 from sunny Paris, and it was blistering sunshine with a hint of thunderstorm in the air.
Absolutely. Let's get into this transfer show. It seems to be, I don't know if you've picked up on this transfer window, but it kind of hasn't really begun yet, to be honest. A lot of links being made, but it seems to be the same, say, 10 or 15 players that are getting spoken about with most teams. There's been a few new links today, but we'll go through them anyway. Let's start off. Jurgen Klopp says James Milner's leadership and quality is not possible to replace at Liverpool, and they've extended his contract for another year. What's your feeling on this?
I'm actually a big fan of James Milner. Not necessarily from, uh, a footballing point of view, but I just think the more I read about this guy, the more he turns out to be the kind of footballer we need in this world. Obviously, I had a historic Facebook post a couple of years ago, and the memories they show up every now and again. I think it was about 5 years ago when he joined Liverpool, and I was commending him for the fact that he was joining Liverpool to gain more game time, and he was actually taking a smaller rate of pay and lesser rate of pay at Liverpool than he had been offered at Manchester City, but he wasn't going to play enough games at City. And I commended him. I went, James Milner, kind of footballer we want, gone to Liverpool. I said the chances are he won't win as much silverware there, but he'll at least play games week to week and prolong the career and stuff like that. Well, I might have got that slightly wrong because, he's won a few bits and pieces since he's been there. But I mean, it just shows he's a class actor guy, doesn't it? It's another time where he's gone, this is the right thing to do and stuff like that. I kind of had thought he'd end up with Leeds. I thought it was the natural progression because we know he's a huge Leeds fan and the family are still season ticket holders. And I think he said he wanted to finish at Leeds eventually. Maybe he feels like he's more than 1 year left in him. Or maybe, maybe Leeds don't feel like he's somebody they're looking to bring in at the minute. I don't know, but listen, I think he's been a model professional at Liverpool, really model professional.
Yeah, there was no hesitation today in signing up. It was a much reduced contract. And believe it or not, they came out today and said he had three much better offers and he turned it down to stay at Liverpool. I'm just wondering, is Liverpool priming him for an ambassador role or a coaching role or something like that? Because he's fantastic in the dressing room, especially with the youth and stuff like that. He's brilliant at managing them and handling them. And people have said, although this guy is a quiet guy, but he's definitely a guy who, like, he steps up to the plate as, a captain without the armband and stuff like that. And he's brilliant at looking after the younger players in there in the squad.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably what they're looking at, And they don't have an awful lot of experience in their squad. It's quite a young squad, Liverpool. And while they've got quite a lot of leaders on the pitch, I think in the dressing room, he's definitely one of the more senior guys who lads will probably look to, especially those younger lads, those Harvey Elliott's, those Curtis Jones and stuff like that. You look at a lad like him who came into Leeds at a very, very young age. He was 16 when he made his debut in the Premier League, if we remember rightly, and has moulded a fantastic career for himself, and he obviously had a certain amount of ability to get there at 16, but I think he's really backed that up with hard work and with effort and stuff like that, and just has to be commended. Can't say enough good about the guy, if I'm honest.
Yeah, this contract as well makes him it's his longest tenure at a club as well, which
Okay.
I was actually quite shocked at, really, but pretty cool as well all the same.
Well, what did he got? He'd Villa, he'd City, he'd Newcastle, and he'd Leeds, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And and Liverpool, you throw them in, they're five serious football clubs as well.
Yeah. No, he's
Five
had a
really
stellar
big
career.
football club. He
Stellar
absolutely
career.
has.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. Real Madrid boss Carlo Ancelotti pushing the club to move for Manchester City striker Gabriel Jesus. Arsenal fans won't want to hear that. Do you reckon this is maybe the agent pushing this out there, that maybe the link isn't credible and that it's like he's basically saying to Arsenal, get your finger out of your backside, basically?
Yeah, I think that's something we see quite a lot of in the transfer window, isn't it? We see a lot of
Mm.
agents kind of moving pieces around that chessboard to ultimately take the position they're looking for. I think he'd be more than happy at Arsenal. I think if they thought Real Madrid was a serious option, he'd wait and sweat it out. But I think they're trying to get Arsenal to push a little bit sooner rather than later. I think Arsenal are probably looking at the market right now and are wondering what can we get for what we have, because I don't believe they've got a huge sum of money to go out and invest in the team. Obviously, Jesus is going to come at a premium because he's obviously free, whereas with a lot of the other guys, you're going to have to put a fee down as well. So I think he's ideal for Arsenal. I think he'd do very well in an Arsenal side. Um, I think he could really, really see him flourish as a nine, which he's wanted to do with City, but hasn't always been given the opportunity. He's always played second fiddle and stuff like that. But I think he could do really, really well under Mikel Arteta at Arsenal. I think they're badly missing a striker. I think if you go in with maybe him and Nketiah as your 1 and 2, maybe the lesser games Nketiah starts, and you can bring Jesus off the bench, and in the bigger games Jesus plays, and you can bring Eddie off the bench and stuff, and try and get them to work like that. And at times maybe you go with two up top with the two boys. I think they complement each other. Gabriel does a lot of the hard yards and stuff like that. And I think Nketiah is a real poacher, isn't he? He's a little bit of a throwback like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Frankie de Jong, Ten Hag came out and says he convinced he can tempt Barcelona star to Man United as the club's near a deal. What's your feeling on this Frankie de Jong? I know you mentioned last time on the transfer show, you would have felt that maybe United might have had one or two things sewn up at this stage. This is an interesting one, isn't it? Because it doesn't sound from what we've heard that Frankie de Jong wants to go to Man United, but it sounds like Barcelona have pinpointed him as one that needs to go out the door to allow them to register other players or potentially bring in, Robert Lewandowski and stuff like that. What's your feeling on a player coming in like that doesn't necessarily want to come in, but finds himself a victim
I,
of Barcelona's circumstance?
I don't think it's a case where he doesn't necessarily want to come in. I think his first preference and choice would have been to stay at Barca. He's at Barcelona. They're one of the biggest clubs in the world. They're playing Champions League football. They're trying to put a squad together to put a run in. You know what I mean? So I think ideally he'd like to stay there. I get that completely. I think obviously there's been a conversation with Ten Hag. Listen, come and play, come and help me build this new side at United, because he's going to be pivotal in that role that he plays, in centre midfield, and probably him and Donny van de Beek, which is going to be that kind of axis that brought Ajax to the table at the Champions League a number of years ago. I certainly don't think he's a guy coming to United against his wishes. I think he'll be more than happy to come to a big club like United, to come and work and under Ten Hag, to come with a good wage and stuff like that. Absolutely, he'll be missing out on Champions League football. I'm sure he'll hope that's only for a season. And I think he'll be buying into the project if he does. And if there's other names to be dropped in there, I think they'll all have to buy into the project a little bit. Um, because Champions League is where it's at, and when you don't have that, you've got to maybe go over the top on wages, or you've got to try and make sure it's somebody that's connected to the coach like that, where you can get them in. But I certainly wouldn't say he's not coming to somewhere he wants to be, if that makes sense. Because if he
Mm.
doesn't want to go, he doesn't have to go. Barca can still say we want to sell him, but he doesn't have to agree at United. He can say, listen, I'm going to sit it out. You've said yourself many a time he can sit on the bench and take his money if he wants.
Yeah, but you
You
feel
know,
kind of like that unwanted child, really, don't you? Because
there's
your gaffer doesn't want you, and then potentially where you're going to is not ideal in your own mind. Not to say that it's not a great move from. I think he'd be a fantastic player at United, especially under Ten Hag. But it's just an interesting one when you hear, like, we heard the other day with Yuri and Timber as well, that, like, he's exploring his options in terms of he was looking for guaranteed game time and stuff like that. That obviously you can't really do that at that level. You know what I mean? And he was also concerned about what the impact would be on his international career with the World Cup coming up and stuff like that. Which is a valid point when you're looking at a contract. Um,
absolutely.
but I would have thought with Ten Hag going in and the time that he had previously, I would have thought one or two of these. Now maybe it's a case it may happen when all these internationals are out of the way this week.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have more momentum on Friday when we do Friday's show.
Mhm.
Certainly we would hope and bring in some news of some signings at least at that stage. But yeah, it's definitely one to watch. But I don't see this being one where the picture of him in the United jersey as a 7-year-old ends up getting posted somehow. I don't think it's that way potentially. Let's talk about Chelsea. Word coming out today that Chelsea are potentially going to unload 7 players, and it should give Thomas Tuchel a war chest, an additional war chest of 170 million. We know that Liverpool has been linked with Christian Pulisic. We know that they've offered Lukaku to Inter Milan, but we're also hearing today as well that potentially they've offered Ruben Loftus-Cheek to Inter Milan as well, which is an interesting dynamic. Now, we know that Tuchel had been working closely with Ruben Loftus-Cheek since he came back in, and it was kind of a little sort of pet project for him. But it kind of it pittered away towards the end of the season, really, didn't it? And I wonder, is Tuchel still convinced that this is a guy who can do a job in that Chelsea team for him?
I've watched the lad a number of times, I have to say, and he has amazing ability and quality. But I'd have to question his hunger and his desire and his work rate. And I think that's basically what Tuchel said in the beginning, and I think it's actually something I heard from Loftus Cheek himself, if I'm right, which was in the FA Cup final, just after the Cup final, he'd gotten in and stuff like that. And he said, I believe it can be he's here. He said, but I need to put the work in and stuff like that. Kind of possibly one of those guys that maybe stuff comes quite easily to, and then the work isn't there because he feels like he doesn't need to work as hard as others because he has those kind of silky skills and devilish good looks and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But now listen, I think we knew there was going to be a bit of an exodus at Chelsea. I don't think it's a massive squad, but I think there was, even for a squad that was that small, there's a lot of dead wood in it. There's not a lot of, it's not great balance to the squad, and I think that's where he'll look at bringing in probably somebody to play in that right back position. And then you'll want an understudy at the left as well. Do you know what I mean? 2 understudies behind James and Chilwell. And then, obviously there's going to be centre back issues, probably midfield and striking. So, again, at Chelsea, I could probably see as many players coming in the door at Chelsea as I could United. Because I think United will use the youth system probably more than Chelsea will, I could certainly see 6 or 7 additions to the Chelsea squad.
Yeah, it looks like I don't know whether they will have a busy window, but I think they probably should have a busy window. But I think certainly come August, we should see the stamp of Thomas Tuchel on the side, especially in the starting 11 and stuff like that. And I mean, we know they're linked heavily with Kunde. That's a deal that I think is just a timing thing. But they're linked with a lot of big links coming out today with Ousmane Dembele. And I know we both have sort of views on that. And certainly I've shared my views with Ian on the Chelsea Roar as well. I think I think that is a massive risk. And I think that could backfire, not dissimilar to Lukaku, but in a different way.
I think if you had players in those positions that were doing it week to week, and this was a guy who could come in and possibly add something, I would say maybe. But Chelsea don't necessarily have that. They've obviously got Mount, who plays in that maybe number 10 position, slightly off the front. And they've been playing with Havertz, which was the false 9, so it was him and Mount. And the wider players, the Pulisic and the Hakim Ziyech and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They were the guys that really struggled for me this season. They were the guys that didn't, perform as well as they could have. And I think for me personally, and again, I'm a guy who doesn't have a card in the game, so it doesn't affect me too much. If I was bringing players into those positions, I'd need to know they were nailed on. That I would then have the other guy, the Ziyech or the Pulisic, to maybe come in and cause an impact at times. Because at times they did make impact, but it was just the level of consistency wasn't there at all. And I don't think you'll get the level of consistency from Dembele either. I think he's a guy, if I had someone that was nailed on the left or the right, I'd say I could throw this guy in once or twice. I can get a few tricks out of him and he'll do a job for me. But I don't think from Chelsea's point of view, I don't think he'll start enough games. And I don't think if he starts enough games, I think the Premier League is going to be very physical for him because we've seen how he struggled in Spain. I think this could be, and he'll cost you big money as well, certainly from a wage point of view. So I think this could be I wouldn't certainly be going over the top for it now.
Yeah, I think it's probably. I know he has spent time with Tuchel at Dortmund and stuff like that, and he was excellent and stuff like that. But I just think, um, I think this is a risk too far when there's others, when there's better options available in the market. I don't think I'd be risking that
Way
option, and
better.
especially where you're looking at a front line where obviously Pulisic has been linked with a move away, Ziyech has been linked with a move away, Werner we know. I don't know whether he'll still be there or not, or whether they'll want to unload him. Lukaku, what's going to happen there with Milan potentially could be a season-long loan, 20 million they're talking about and stuff that they're trying to figure that out as well. So you're looking at a front line of Chelsea there, and like, what are you left with? I mean, the main man is Kai Havertz, obviously. Um,
Yeah, and as good as Koi was when he was on the pitch, he wasn't on the pitch enough this season for me either. There was a lot of knocks and there was a lot of games where he
yeah,
wasn't 100% and couldn't start and stuff like that. Again, I think he suffered from the physicality of the Premier League. I don't question the kid's ability at all or his endeavour when he's out there. He's a very good player. But again, like if he's going to play in the 10 slot even, and you're going to maybe, move Mount to the left and maybe possibly Werner to the right, although, you're not going to get as much from Werner coming from that side. Like that's a huge, it's a huge stretch if you're asking me. I'd
yeah,
say they'd
absolutely.
find
I
that
mean,
very, very difficult.
we know as well he suffered a little bit from that long CV, that fatigue that came from the CV-19 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So we might see a very different Kai Havertz this year coming in, where he's had a full pre-season and stuff like that and all. But
he just doesn't look like he's like because he's quite a tall boy, but
yeah,
like his build is very, very slight.
mm,
He's all elbows and shoulders and knees, and I just kind of think every time somebody tries and tackle him, I'm kind of going, Jesus, he doesn't strike me as
yeah.
very robust for the Premier League.
Yeah, I always get the same feeling as well when Pulisic goes in for a tackle. I'm
Yeah,
always nearly waiting for a stretcher to show up, kind of thing, and that would be the concern. But
yeah.
I think you're going to see a very different Chelsea coming through this season in terms of when Tuchel brings in these players. He is obviously going to have a lot of money there, I would imagine, to spend. I'd say there's at least 200 there, plus whatever he gets on these outgoings, potentially 170. So you could see him spending serious money because, as you said, there's a lot of places to fill.
100%. And even if you think about, Conor Gallagher coming back in probably to take one of those maybe midfield spots,
Yeah.
maybe even the spot of a Loftus Cheek or something like that. If you could get
Mm.
whatever you're getting for Loftus Cheek and you could put Gallagher into the squad and let him play the game time to Loftus Cheek, that'd be a step up for me. But certainly there's a lot of space to be filled at Chelsea. I wouldn't be surprised to see them spend between 250 and 300. Have to say,
We're big fans of Gallagher, aren't we? He's ready to go in there, isn't he?
huge,
He's
absolutely
ready
is.
to go in there, isn't he? 100%.
Absolutely. Spiteful,
A matter
aggressive,
of
like
yeah,
really, really good footballer.
a matter of fact, I'd be concerned if Chelsea weren't pushing that button. It might drive the guy away because he'll want that. You know what I mean? 100%.
The only thing I could see, you know, is if they decide to give him another year loan and just say, listen, we feel like you're close, but we feel like by having you involved in our squad, you won't develop the way maybe you could at another club getting 38 league games or 30 plus, and then you might look and see them send them out somewhere.
But then you're potentially looking at another signing, then, aren't you? Because we don't know what's going to happen with Jorginho. We don't know what's going to happen with Kante. A lot of that is up in the air as well. And if you bring in a
Absolutely.
signing, let's say you bring in another, say, world class midfielder or a big signing, are you blocking that pathway for him a year down the line potentially?
It's hard to say, I mean,
Yeah,
they've obviously got Billy Gilmore as well,
yeah,
you know. So there's guys going to come back in. It depends on what way Tuchel wants to play and who he sees. Like he may not have a space for a Gallagher who's going to be a little more on the front foot, whereas somebody like a Gilmore who's maybe going to sit in front of the back four and playing that double pivot and stuff might be someone more suited to the style of play.
mm,
So I think
yeah,
that'll be important too. But
yeah.
listen, I think wherever the kid ends up with, whether it's Chelsea or if he goes out on loan, or if somebody puts money down on the table for him, I think he's going to be phenomenal. I really do.
Yes, smashing player.
Yeah,
Pep and Klopp potentially locking horns again. Seems like both Liverpool and Man City interested in Calvin Phillips.
don't see it.
Yeah,
Don't see it at all.
I don't see it either.
Do you know? No.
No.
I don't know where it's come from. I could absolutely see him in Pep's side or in a squad. I don't think it's a fit at Liverpool. Not that he hasn't got the ability to play in there. It doesn't strike me as a deal Liverpool would, get involved in. I think when you talk about English players, you've got that inflated price straight away, haven't you? And Liverpool have tended to stay away from that as much as possible. When they've dealt, they've done their business, and they've kind of jabbed from the outside rather than getting stuck in the middle. I think that'd be a crazy signing for Liverpool. And again, I'd suggest maybe in a Liverpool team where that press and stuff and that, and you want somebody really, really robust in there. Not sure Calvin Phillips your guy.
Yeah. Man United and Liverpool both linked with Darwin Nunez. United apparently have progressed the deal greatly, but Liverpool have come in sort of, I won't say last minute, because I think this is a deal that might sort of rumble on a little bit longer than expected. But I've heard a number about fan bases today and coming out and talking about one of the things that's come out is his pass completion stuff. It's about 54% or something like that, which means he gives away a ball in every 2 passes. Would that worry you in any way? I mean, he's a phenomenal talent, isn't he? And still a young kid.
It wouldn't worry me because of the position he played in. If he was playing at centre back or centre midfield, I would. But he's played all across that front three. So he's played from the right, from the left, and through the middle. And it's very tough, to maybe spend your time spread out across those positions. But also when you're in the attacking third, you tend to try a little more with the pass and you push a little more. I mean, if we look at Bruno's pass completion rate at times, it's very low as well. I know it is something that shocked a lot of United fans. So, I think when you're in those positions, it's about taking chances. And it wouldn't worry me, to be honest. I think the kid's very talented. I think we saw what he was capable of at Anfield, with the finishes and stuff like that. He's a big, strong boy, holds the ball up well, links the game, gives you a target. I think there's loads of options with him. Really, really loads of options. And I think, below the likes of, as we said, a Haaland or a Vlahovic, you're at somebody like a Nunez. He especially in that younger age category, maybe a Christopher Nkunku, those 4 or 5 players. If you want to be involved in the conversation, you need to try and get one of these guys in the door, because we know what City you've already done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I heard on that deal, that United have about 70 million down on the table from. There's an add-on and bonuses, plus there's a player involved in the transfer, which brings the fee up close to 100 million. Now, the player that they were talking about was possibly Andreas Pereira. And I don't know whether there was a sticking point with Benfica where Benfica said, well, actually, that's not the player we're looking for. There had been talk maybe they were looking for somebody else, possibly an Anthony Martial, because they were replacing maybe like a front man with a front man. But again, I don't know if that's something Martial would be into, and I don't know if it's something United as a club would be into, because we don't know what Ten Hag's plans are.
Yeah, I think if that's the level of the fee of where it goes, I think Liverpool will very quickly back out of that. I would have thought. 100%. I think that's very, very high.
You're not going to get that kid for 60 million, and I think that's where Liverpool would have dealt.
Yeah, I think they'd probably go as far as 70, but if you was throwing a player as well, that could be quite appealing to Benfica as well.
I think that the problem was that I don't think there was a want to throw a player. I think it was the Benfica side that were saying, listen, we want you guys to get as close to the 100 million as possible. How are you going to structure a deal? And the deal was structured that they're 70 down. You've got this player plus the bonuses that can bring it to this threshold. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Interesting. Yeah, it'll definitely unfold this week. Christian Eriksen, heavily linked with United today, and also we know with Spurs.
Yeah.
I don't think we see him staying at Brentford, do we? I mean, Denmark for us are kind of like they're the underdogs really in this World Cup, aren't they? They go under the radar really, but they're a fantastic footballing team, and I think he'll want to be in. I don't want to say a higher level than Brentford and disrespect him in any way, but he'll want to be operating at a different level, let's say, heading into that World Cup.
I think he's tested himself at that level now, and he knows it's well within his grasp, Whereas I think now this season he'll want to say, right, I want to get back involved in European competition. I want to maybe start getting more games. and more game time under my belt at a better level. So when I get to this World Cup, I can really put my best foot forward. I mean, let's be honest. Denmark went a goal down the other night against France away and turned it around and picked up a really, really big win away in France, which is no mean feat,
Which are not unusual for them either. We've seen them do this
No,
time and time
and
again.
yeah, they're such a good, as you said, they're a unit, they're a team. Everybody's pulling in one direction. Tactically, they're very, very good. You look at the team before kickoff and you go, yeah, he's okay, he's okay, he's okay. And then when they go out there and they play, you're going, geez, he was way better than okay, and so was that good, And they all seem to get that extra 10 or 15% out of each other, which is what good teams do. I'd love to see him at United. I don't know how feasible it is to have him in there because I think we're going to get to a stage again at United where there's a lot of guys playing in or looking to have similar roles. Because obviously you're looking at the minute, you've got Bruno, you've got Donny van de Beek, who are there now at the minute. If you're talking about a Frenkie de Jong, maybe Frankie's going to sit a bit deeper in front of the back four and stuff like that and play that double pivot maybe. You bring an Eriksen in, you're back into that Donny van de Beek, Bruno. Again, is he going to play, is he going to play the three in the middle? Or is he going to play a diamond? Is he going to put, I still think there's a lot. Now, listen, we need players everywhere right now.
Yeah, that's what as you spoke there, I was thinking squad. And have these
100%,
options and all.
I still think you want balance to your squad. Like, I still think you want, a couple of right backs, a couple of left backs, a couple of centre forwards. You've obviously got Ronaldo.
That's a key position for United, isn't it?
The midfield and that number 10 position or anyone that can play across the front, yeah. Listen, there's going to be opportunities for the youth at United as well, I'd imagine. And they've just given the boy Charlie Savage a new contract. I expect him to be involved somewhat in the first team maybe next year. Maybe the boy Hannibal as well. And also the boy Garnacho. So there's a lot there. There really is. There's the boy Fernandez, who we got from Real Madrid. He's a fullback. He's been on the bench. Alvaro Fernandez, he was on the bench in the last couple of games. And they're talking about him being possibly one of the best young fullbacks in world football. Now, this is a guy who may end up taking a space that United fans thought we were going to have to sign somebody for. That the work was already done to get him from Real Madrid earlier on, So we'll have to wait and see. I think the squad makeup this year it'll be different than a lot of people would have thought it'll be. I think we'll have a lot of the Hannibals, the Garnachos, but I think we'll see them play in a much more structured, tactical kind of way rather than just flooding the market with big players. I think you're going to have those bits of quality, but I think there's going to be a lot of younger lads that'll have to put minutes in, maybe, and we'll be relying on them a little bit where, United fans didn't think we would have to.
Okay. Gareth Bale, Wales qualifying for the World Cup, ending up, I think, in England's group, which is going to be fantastic to watch. It'll certainly be very, very interesting. What you make on Gareth Bale now? I mean, he was talking about retirement and stuff like that. Doesn't look like he's going to retire now. Could you see him going back to Spurs again for a third stint?
Possibly. I don't know whether Conte is a fan of him or not. He'd be a great option coming in off that right behind the Kulusevski. If Kulusevski was going to play, you could bring Bale on for impact or vice versa. You've obviously got Son, you've got Kane, you've got the boy Diane Scarlett, who's just signed a big deal there as well. You've got Troy Parrott, who's further down the line. So, I mean, Spurs are starting to build a squad there as well, I'm not sure whether Spurs would exactly be the fit for Bale right now. I think if you're Gareth Bale, you want to come in and play games guaranteed. And I think if you want games guaranteed, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him at Newcastle.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And I'd say if you're ever going to bring him in, this is the 4 or 5 months to bring him in because he's going to want to play really well heading into that World Cup,
Well, I mean, here's the thing. He could show up in a body bag in Qatar and Robert Page would play him. And rightly so, by the way. So, but I do think he'll want to run of games. I do think he'll want to test himself as much as he can week to week in the Premier League. I think an option where he goes in and plays at a team not in Europe would suit him because you don't have the added extras of the travel and stuff like that. Because we know he's very, very injury prone and stuff. I think if he was going in to play a league game every Saturday afternoon and he was training week to week, it might suit him down to the ground and you could see a really good Gareth Bale come November, December time. I think Newcastle, I think it's just such a good option for him because it also raises Newcastle's profile, exponentially. Because this is Gareth Bale, who's just coming with 5 Champions Leagues. You're probably going to put him down that right hand side with a Kieran Trippier or something like that. Like all of a sudden you're building. Then you're telling guys we've got a Bale, we've got a Trippier, we've got this guy, and it starts to look really, really good for Newcastle as a side. Then that's personally where I think you'll end up, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Sadio Mane. Let's talk about him for a second. There's a lot of stuff coming out with this guy at the moment, and then he seems to be backtracking them. This guy has suddenly decided to become a bit of a joker, and I'm not sure if it's the backlash off some of the stuff. No, it doesn't really, and it's very out of character. I mean, the stuff the other day about 60 to 70% of Senegalese people want him to leave Liverpool, which is something I can't understand considering the riches we've brought to him and what he's done with that money in Senegal is a very strange comment to make. But then also Bayern came in with a 21 million bid and 4 million in add-ons, and it was rejected straight away. It's embarrassing to say the least, an offer like that anyway. So, and I think they were doing it on the strength of the goodwill from the transfer from Thiago, where we got him for it was slightly more. I think it was around the 28 or something like that, but it was similar, let's say. And I thought they were trying to try it on, but obviously there's a very different thing going in and bidding for a player at the moment who's been absolutely outstanding for Liverpool and has thrown his hat into the Ballon d'Or things at times, compared to Thiago, who was coming in. So, what you thinking on what's been coming out and stuff like that? And
well, Thiago was scary good at Bayern before he came to us.
Yeah.
Scary good. I mean, like they only just won the Champions League and stuff like that. He was amazing, really, really amazing. I think what they looked at was they're 2 players at similar ability. They're 2 players at similar ages, and they're 2 players, with similar length of time left on their contracts at that stage. And that's possibly where they're going with it. The Mane thing is really strange. Like, for how many years have we not heard a word from Sadio Mane? And all of a sudden, I'm like, every time I see something, I kind of scratch my head. I'm going, where's this coming from? Because obviously we see last night, there's the talk about, maybe I'll go and sign for my boyhood club, which was Marseille.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and then he says he's joking about it, and I don't know whether you've picked up on it the last week or so, but the smile has become more of a smirk.
It's like the devil on one shoulder is kind of getting the better of the angel on the other, isn't it? It's very, very strange. Some people just aren't funny people. My wife tries to crack a joke here in the house, and I'll say, listen, leave the gags to me. I'm the funny one here in this house. And he just looks like one of those people. He's not a funny person, and he's trying to be funny, and it's not coming off at all. I think he's dirty in his bid, though, with Liverpool fans, I have to say. I think you could end up leaving a very, very sour taste in the mouth. And I don't think that's something you want to do at a club like Liverpool when you're held in such high regard, and when you've had that mutual respect between you and the fans, where you put your work in and the club have done right by you.
Yeah, I think from the fans' point of view as well, they'd like to see this sorted sooner rather than later, rather than it tiptoeing on and stupid stuff coming out like that. That just kind of sours it a little bit, because he's been fantastic for us. And if he just went off and signed for Bayern Munich, we'd wish him well and go, thank you for your service and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to be coming out with this dross and this drivel, and then to backtrack on it when you see the wave of heat off it, to backtrack and go, oh, sure, I was only joking. Well, it might be funny in your own mind, but it's not funny when you're talking about a fan base out there of millions of people worldwide and stuff like that, who are viewing it only from a certain point of view, So, very interesting. Newcastle have been told to go out and splash 50 million on Nathan Ake from Manchester City. What you thinking on this one?
Yeah, obviously, Ake was at Bournemouth, wasn't he, when Eddie Howe was there? So they brought him in from Chelsea. I mean, Ake's a good centre back. Did well towards the end of the season at City. Came up with some clutch goals and stuff like that. Likes to play in that left centre back spot. 50 million's probably about the going rate for a decent centre back. I would imagine. Like, if you're talking about the boy Cundy, what's he gonna cost? 70?
Yeah, well, I mean, they didn't get the deal done at 50 odds, sure they didn't. So
So
it's going to be at least
it's
another
going to
10.
be
So you're there or thereabouts, yeah.
thereabouts at 70. You're talking a guy, Nathan Aki, who can play in the league, who doesn't have a track record of maybe injuries. He's quite robust. He can play game after game. He's still young. He's still progressing. Yeah, like it's all about whether that's what they want. What's that the level they're comfortable at? You know what I mean? If they're not comfortable at that, they drop down to a 35 million, and they look to get involved with someone there. But I don't think you're getting involved with Nathan Aki at that price, because I don't think City can replace him at that price.
Yeah, and he's another player as well who's had a fantastic year on the international scene as well. He's played really, really good for Holland as well, and I'd
Yeah.
imagine he's going to want to. He's probably going to want to up his game time as well,
You've
heading into the
seen
World Cup.
himself and Yuri and Timber flank Virgil van Dijk on a number of occasions in that back five, with Denzel Dumfries on the right, and then Daley Blind even at times on the left. And the Dutch have been phenomenal. It's one of the best seasons you've seen in Dutch football over the previous number of years, So, yeah, I think he's gone from strength to strength. I don't think City will be interested in getting rid of him, because I think, if you're looking at Diaz, Laporte, Stones and Aki, you've got your four centre backs. You can juggle them around and stuff like that if needs be. We know City obviously have Walker and Cancelo on the right. They're probably going to look at Zinchenko and another left back to kind of balance the situation up a bit. But I don't think they'll want to sell. So I think Bournemouth will have to go in at that, or not Bournemouth, Newcastle will have to go in if they want. If not, they'll just have to look elsewhere. Maybe they'll go back in for a Sven Botman at 35, 40 million.
Yeah,
And take your chances with a guy who hasn't played in the Premier League.
Yeah, I'd imagine City as well will be quite sensitive to it, because they've seen what happened this season when they've had a couple of injuries there at the back, how exposed they were. Although they got through it and went on to win the league, but still, there was times there where they were very exposed in terms of injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let's finish out with a guy you just mentioned there. Actually, we're bringing up Daley Blind. Turned around and says, unbelievable Ajax teammate Yuri Timber rejects. He hopes he rejects Man United this summer. What's your thinking on that?
Well, I think that's from it's a selfish point of view from Blind, isn't it? He wants to keep Matt Ajax for as long as he can, because I think he understands when he comes out of that Ajax team, it's going to create a big hole in that back line. And the longer he can keep him in the back line, the longer Ajax can compete on a domestic and a European level, So I'm not surprised to hear it. I would imagine Blind will be quite complimentary of his time at Old Trafford. And would certainly be saying, listen, if you're gonna go, absolutely give it a spin at United.
Yeah, if you're gonna go, that's the place to go.
I would think so. He was very well liked, very well treated at Old Trafford. I still think we probably sold him too early. I still think he had a lot to offer us, and I think we probably didn't see him playing his best position enough, which was that defensive midfield position. I think when he played in there at times, he was very, very good, because he distributes the ball so well, and he had a great screen across the back four. Because as a defender, you know what positions you need to take up and where you need to screen. And I just think he needed a run of games in that position to really nail it down for United. It's a position we've struggled with before and after.
Yeah, absolutely. We finish out with Yves Bissouma, a guy that we're very big fans of at Brighton.
Yeah.
He's been kind of social media pimping himself out to Arsenal a little bit.
Don't do it yourself, Yves. The heartache is real. Just ask any of the boys from Arsenal TV if you can find them. They're all back under those stones they crawled out from. Listen, he's a quality player.
Yeah.
You'd absolutely want him in your lineup if you could get him. I think he'd bring a lot to an Arsenal midfield. Again, a real kind of a robustness, a real kind of an energy and stuff like that, which at times they really, really lack in there. And I think he's got more quality on the ball than maybe what they have in there as well. Listen, will Brighton want to sell a guy like that? I'd be shocked. But maybe he's spoken to the club, maybe said, I'm not getting involved with a new deal. So, with 2 years left on it, whatever it is, now's the time to roll the dice. Cash in, ching ching for everybody. You get the money to replace me. They've obviously they've pretty much bought the replacement, which is the boy Moses Caicedo. who the Ecuadorian lad that was put forward by Antonio Valencia to Man United, and United looked at him, backed off the deal. He signed for Brighton, and towards the end of the season, he came in and started playing games for Brighton, which I think a lot of United fans had thought this was going to be a 2 or 3 year, pathway for this kid. But he's already in that team. He's picked up a goal and stuff like that. Looked very good, very energetic in there. And again, typical United, not going in early enough. And then he's a guy maybe in 18 months, 2 years down the line, we're going to be looking at 40, 50 million. And this is something we've talked about, a number of times recently. And it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially looking from an energy point of view for Brighton as well, if they are going to lose the boy Cucurella to Man City, that's a lot of energy coming out of that team if Basuma and Cucurella were to go.
Yeah, 100%. And you've got to, listen, it definitely pads out the bank balance, but your scouting system, it has to be so good to be able to go back in there and grab another Mark Cucurella and grab another Ace Basuma. Now listen, don't get me wrong, there's lads in the French league, certainly in that midfield position, there's a number of African lads in there who are built really well, who have great energy levels and stuff like that. And you could probably get them in for that 10, 15, 20 million. If you're getting 40 plus for Basuma, you're pocketing 20 million possibly off a deal like that. And if the kid progresses the way that Basuma did, you're not down as much on it. You know what I mean? If the scouting is really good, maybe you get a player that's even better.
Yeah. Who knows? Going to be interesting anyway. Well, this has been your transfer show. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Great having you back on. I hope you enjoyed your long weekend away. If you want to contact the show, I was going to call it a bender, but I can't call it that, can I really? Because it was more fun than that. And I was glad
5 drinks in 4 days, you can definitely not call it a bender.
Absolutely. If you want to contact the show, the upper tier podcast at gmail.com, audio versions of the show, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And we're on Twitter as well at the _upper_ tier. We hope to be back with you Friday for another transfer show. And we're hoping we can talk actually about a few deals that have been done rather than kind of the hearsay that's floating around at the moment with the internationals being done and tied down this week. Hopefully the scouts and the agents and the clubs will get busy because this is going to be a short window. This is going to come up very, very quick. I think I was hearing today United are 3 weeks away from starting pre-season. This is going to happen really quick.
It's mid-July or end of June, isn't it? Yeah. End of June because of the World Cup.
And the first week in June is already gone. Flying by. Until next time, my friend.
Quick. Thanks, pal.
A pleasure.